Chris, welcome to Tales from the Trail. And let's go ahead and get started. If you don't mind, just introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Cagle. I work for a company called UniqueHR, and I am a novice Salesforce user. So happy to be here and hopefully provide some value to the listeners.
Sure. Thank you for being here. And that position that you are in now represents a lot of people, millions of people in the ecosystem trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And I do want to make a small correction. I always forget the S. The podcast is called Tales from the Trails.
Yeah.
So I don't get in trouble with the rest of my team. I need to say Tales from the Trails. Okay, Chris, before we jump into Salesforce, what we believe here at Ban Jackson on Tales from the Trails is that every business and every organization that's out there doing something is doing something for a reason. They have a purpose, they have a mission statement that actually helps society in some way. So
Yeah.
go ahead, and what does Unique HR do exactly for people?
Yeah, so UniqueHR is what's called a PEO company, a professional employer organization.
Okay.
And maybe the shortest way to say it is we help businesses get really laser focused on their mission by taking a lot of the what's called like transactional human resources functions of a business, taking those off their plate, a lot of the liability, the government compliance, consolidating a lot of the different vendors that some companies use for workers' comp and medical insurance and payroll. I mean, we put those in one place. And again, the goal being that they can streamline, what they do. Nobody gets in business to do those things, but the government will show up at your door if you don't do them and you don't do them
Right.
well. So we help businesses just focus on their mission by taking those things and the liabilities related to them off their plate.
I love that. So that's similar to us in the same
Yeah,
sense that,
exactly.
yeah, we help businesses accomplish their mission. So that's great. And I know that when you are trying to really focus on a mission, those other things can definitely seem like pains in the neck that you don't want to deal with. But as you mentioned, if you don't deal with them, there can be consequences. So that's great to have a partner
Yeah.
like you guys.
Yeah, Unique has been around for about 32 years. I've been with Unique and in Salesforce for about 3 months now. But yeah, it's really resonated with me. The vision makes a lot of sense. I see the value. And that's my understanding of Banjax as well. A lot of similarities there.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is unique about Unique?
Unique about Unique, that's a great question. We actually had a meeting this morning and we were talking about that very thing. So we really put an emphasis on the personal customer service, personal relationships. There's bigger entities in our space, they're bigger companies, and there's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes, when you get to a certain size, you're going to lose some things. And so we really focus on developing the personal relationship with businesses, really being aware of what's going on in their business and communicating that across our organization to make sure that it's not just this one person that knows, hey, business, hey, they're dealing with this. How can we help them? Let's all be aware of those things of our clients. And you call the corporate office, you get a human, they're going to answer phone, they're going to direct your call. And so that's where we really set ourselves apart in our Unique is in that customer service. It's impossible to talk about it without using that pun.
Sure. I
Forgive
love
me,
it.
but yeah, that's what we do.
One thing I like about it that you mentioned is that y'all talked about it this morning. And I think that's one of the things that differentiates companies that have some kind of unique identifier and companies that actually live it out, because every company has come up with something in their initial brainstorming session about what their real value adding contribution is. But the fact that your team is reiterating it and hammering it home on a regular basis is, I think, what really helps to make sure that's true and
Yeah.
that you really are focusing on those people and that really is your differentiator in the market. So that's awesome. That's good to hear. So let's move into where Salesforce overlaps this mission statement and what do you use it for? How's it helpful? And how did you get introduced to that?
We use it just in the what I assume is the traditional functionality
Mhm.
of the kind of the CRM component.
Okay.
So we have some leads that or prospects, I should say, are put into the system from our Salesforce admin. And then also I can manually put stuff in if I maybe meet somebody at a chamber
Hmm.
event, the example, or if I'm driving around and I see there's a lot of cool businesses here in the Brazos Valley. So we enter them in, and then you can call and you can update. So what I imagine in my limited use and experience is the very mainstream, bare bones, mainline functionality of tracking prospects. So for me, relatively new to my industry, relatively new to sales. So I'm calling people and you want to be reaching out, but it's very important to follow up and remember what was that person's name or who did I talk to? So entering that information in to the system, following up, setting reminders of, hey, I talked to this person, I'm going to reach out to them, or they are interested in some information. So I'm going to maybe go out there and drop stuff off. So that's how I've been using it, introduced just from this job. I hadn't used it before. And I think Unique is relatively new in the Salesforce world as
Mm,
well. So we as an organization have some maturing and learning to do. And then I certainly do as well.
great. So let me clarify.
Yeah.
We see a lot of different models of how Salesforce is used, really just a
Mhm.
few different patterns. And one of those patterns is single department use. And the opposite extreme of that pattern is everyone in the company uses
Yeah.
Salesforce to run every single department. They're interconnected. Now, on that single department use, the most common department, which is a single department use, is the sales department. Because it's called, for one, we have a naming convention issue where it's called Salesforce. I think it really started in sales. So we do see that pattern quite often. Is that y'all's case where you really use it for the sales function of the business?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, we're the only people, sales team, and maybe some marketing people because they'll upload some information to
Hmm.
Salesforce you can access. But to the best of my knowledge, that yeah, it's mainly just salespeople.
Okay, great. And you mentioned that some of the leads are in Salesforce come from an external source,
Mhm.
but there's someone entering those in. Do you guys have any automation in terms of leads automatically being put in through some external system like a marketing system or anything like that?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I think we have some of our leads, I think, come from related to like health insurance.
Mhm.
We provide medical insurance. We have another bad pun. We have a unique way of
Okay.
administering and offering those benefits. So there's some paperwork that's filed that becomes public knowledge related to renewal dates. And my understanding is those are manually pulled and entered. And I've since learned from talking to some band jaxers that there is a potential of automation. And I believe there's even some things that in my role that I could automate that I need to become aware of and learn. But yeah, right now, as far as I know, it's pretty much all manual.
Great. Yeah, you can see how once you start to connect the dots, it can grow.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it can, okay, now that you've got your marketing sending leads in for your sales department, once those close, do you want that information automatically going to accounting? And so there is a progression of sort of the takeover where you could eventually get to this situation as a business where you're completely operating within Salesforce.
All for it.
Okay, great. Well, maybe we can see this happen with you guys and help in any way we
Yeah.
can. But so since you're relatively new to Salesforce, have you jumped into any of the training? What have you learned about what can be done from your side?
Yeah, I have not jumped in enough to the
Hmm.
training. I'm in that stage where I'm doing I don't know, the baseline stuff to get me through. I need to take some time to learn. There's some automated things I could do or some better ways. The times that I have tried to utilize a resource that's literally just me Googling it, which usually
Hmm.
leads me to Salesforce documentation, which I've found as a novice Salesforce user can be a little, I don't know if overwhelming or just a little confusing because there are so many modules. And then there's, I guess, a newer version of Salesforce, and there's like Lightning, and then there's this other one. So I'm like, I don't know which steps am I supposed to be following here. Like I was trying to like update my email signature in a template or something because you can email out of Salesforce.
Right.
I am using that. That's not advanced, but advanced for me. I'm using that feature, and so I wanted to update. And I've learned that Salesforce has, I think, some training material, videos, and like whole library of stuff But yeah, right now it's me Googling. I think I've looked at some YouTube videos. So not leveraging the options as much as I should.
Great. There's so many layers that you can undertake. So when you get started, you'll start out Googling, and then you'll start to understand a few things, and then you can get another layer deep, and then you might take a trailhead. Uh,
Yeah.
what actually happens with some people that get introduced into Salesforce is that your knowledge of Salesforce over time becomes a critical or valuable part of your career development. And so that's something that you might want to consider as you start to put these tools in your tool belt.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know Salesforce is used in a lot of places, and like you mentioned earlier, even in other departments. You
Mm,
said being more well versed, more knowledgeable about it, not only could help me in this role and career wise and being more productive and efficient. I think that's something that everyone faces and talks about. And there's so much connectivity that almost hinders you in a way. You get distracted by social media accounts and your phone blowing up. And so that's something that has been on my mind. Yeah, how do I get more efficient? And particularly in this role, because I'm meeting people and then I'm trying to follow up with people. And then I got to spend time to go in and put information into Salesforce. So anything that I can automate, I'm for. And so, yeah, I think that's a very good piece of advice and outlook that it's not just maybe for this, but career wise, getting better at Salesforce or learning, be more versed is super important.
right. Yeah, I totally agree. I know that when I first got introduced to Salesforce, it took me a few months before it sunk in how impactful this was going to be, both to the economy, to my business, and to myself personally. So you may find that same experience. And then, if possible, you may come to find that play out with Unique as well, as you guys try to make things more efficient and work on operations and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I know right now, I don't think we're really leveraging a whole lot of inbound marketing. And I know that's something that's on our radar. And so right now, it's a lot of just outbound, a lot of cold calling,
Mhm.
prospecting. So definitely like the things you mentioned of being able to have some inbound and some marketing pulling into the sales side and being automated. I'm all for anything again that we can automate, set up. It's cool, but more importantly, it's effective and it's beneficial. So I'm sure we'll at some point get down that road.
Awesome. We already jumped into my follow-up questions, which were, what are the things that you think could be done that aren't being done yet or aren't working correctly now? And you started to talk about that already.
Yeah, I think also for me coming in, being new in the industry and in sales and Salesforce, in a way, can be a benefit because I'm not having to unlearn some habit. Whereas we have other more experienced salespeople that have been in the industry and in sales that were doing it a different way. I don't know if Unique had something else, but it wasn't Salesforce. I can come in and start my habits, whether they're good or bad, in Salesforce, whereas other people have spreadsheets and whatever system they had. And now it's, hey, we need you to put this in. So it's actually for me a benefit. I do have some amount of experience as a software administrator before. So I'm more prone to being all in or on board with doing those things of, hey, the data matters and the integrity of the data matters and let's do it. So I do have those benefits, whereas some people, it's like, yeah, I've got this spreadsheet that I've tracked for 5 years and it has my stuff. So you want me to enter all this or can I start now? So it is a little bit of benefit of being new.
That's a huge benefit, actually, because you touched on two things. One is that you don't have any bad habits. You're not bringing over any baggage of other systems,
Yeah.
but that you already have a grasp of data integrity, which is
Mhm.
important, right? Because all of your reports and automations are going to depend on the quality of the data. So to have that sort of understanding of data integrity, willingness to adopt Salesforce, no bad habits, I think you're set up for success there.
Yeah, likewise.
Great. Chris, what do you imagine the next 12 months will look like? If you were going to take some baby steps in terms of improving your Salesforce experience to improve your work, what would that look like over the next 12 months?
We, I think, touched on it, getting into, I believe it's called the trailheads,
Okay.
trails.
Yeah,
That's,
learning more. Yeah,
Yeah, just
improving your education of Salesforce.
yeah, learning more, getting more efficient. Again, just anything I can automate. One of the features that I really like right now is the ability to email out of
Mm,
Salesforce because it kind of documents it, but it also has some ability to see if people have opened that email or not. And in sales, that's super important to my strategy of, okay, I know they opened it. I don't know if they actually read it.
mhm.
No, they clicked on it, even if it was inadvertently. Or, hey, I've sent this person 2 emails, they haven't opened it. Third email, maybe not the best bet. Like, what is my strategy? So I do enjoy that. I'm sure there's some more features in that kind of realm that I could utilize. So for me, that would definitely be the biggest is getting more efficient. And then going back to what we said earlier, hopefully as an organization, maybe here in the next 6 to 12 months, we would start doing some of those inbound things, which I may or may not have a part of, but I will certainly benefit from. So that'd be my agenda.
Cool. That email feature that you mentioned makes me think of how everybody on iPhone wants everyone on Android to switch to iPhone so that you can get the
Yeah,
notifications of when you're reading, when you're messaging the blue.
yeah.
So
Are you
Salesforce is like the iPhone of CRMs.
okay? Okay. I am a pretty hardcore Android user, so maybe that's why, my
Yeah, me
wife is
too.
iPhone, I'm Android. Yeah.
Yeah, but does she give you a hard time about it?
Yeah, because her family, my side of the family are pretty much all iPhone users.
Hmm.
But it's funny you said you're Android because that's what I always tell my wife. I'm like, most people in more of a IT realm are on the Android side. Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it's a personal choice. I have gone back and forth.
it's a battle for sure.
All right, last one. What advice would you give to someone who is entering a company that has Salesforce and they're sitting down for the first time, they've never seen it? What advice would you give them to be successful in that position?
The two things I would say, or what we've talked about, what I need to do is get into those learning modules, learn. The other thing I would say is I've worked in IT for a while before. I worked for a school district and I worked in a medical clinic. And a lot of times, not everyone, but some people can be intimidated by something like that. And Salesforce reminds me of the Adobe environment. It's very powerful. And when you
Right.
open it, it can be overwhelming to some people. So I would just say don't let it intimidate you. Like for me, using a fraction of the power and it's working and I'm getting through it. I wouldn't say it's confusing, but there's a learning curve. So if you're new, yeah, just don't get intimidated by it. Like everything else in life that you've gone through, you'll figure this out too. And there are resources in combination with using those resources, maybe better than I have currently. Yeah, don't be intimidated. You'll figure it out. So it's got a lot of power, a lot of benefits when you get the hang of it.
Sounds like great advice, Chris. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tales from the Trails. Really appreciate your input, and I'm sure that a lot of users are going to get a benefit out of it. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.